Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Well, folks, it's time for another episode of the Soul Sessions. Of course, as always, I'm your host, Soul. And with me today, I say some crazy things on this show, but I never thought I would say the legs of pro wrestling. I mean, hey, some people are leg people, that's cool. But if you're with feet, please leave by the nearest available exit. We do not like that around here. I have some etiquette. But with us, of course, today, Lana Rae. Welcome, Lana.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Lana. But, of course, we have a routine on this show. As I say, every guest has a story. Every story has a beginning. Lana, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
As a wrestling fan, I was quite, I guess some people start when they're like 6 or 8 or younger watching wrestling. It was never a thing in my house. So I watched it when I was first 13 years old. And I just randomly came up. I was like having a YouTube, just watch fest when you're 13, you stay up till like 4 a.m. just watching videos on YouTube, whatever it is. And I think wrestling came up. I was on UFC, and I started my love for UFC, and then it started with WWE, and it was like women's wrestling for WWE. So it was like a match between, I want to say it was like the Bella Twins versus Michelle McCool and Layla. I watched it, and I just instantly was hooked, fell in love, came downstairs the next day, and I was like, I had Sky, luckily. So I was very blessed and fortunate, because obviously it was at the time where WWE was only on Sky. And yeah, I just fell down the rabbit hole there. So since 13, just loved it ever since. It hasn't stopped, and it's just brought me on this crazy road where I am now.
Well, we might as well call you Alice, because you've fallen down the rabbit hole into Wonderland. I mean, hey, it's a good journey there. But obviously, a lot of wrestling fans get into it when they're younger, kids' age. You said 13. I got into it when I was I was 22. So everyone has different entry points to it. But how do you feel your entry point has been when you look back on things? Because a lot of people have grown up with a lot of history and a lot of big matches. But for yourself and me, obviously, we have to go back and watch these, in the future, down the line. Has that affected your consumption of some wrestling media?
I'd say a little bit, because especially as like a women's wrestling fan, and that's all I really watched, to be honest. It was really hard to sort of find actual women's wrestling, like especially pay-per-view matches, which is when women would actually be given time almost, to find those like great matches everyone would speak about on YouTube. And I found that really difficult, but I feel like I sort of always kept tabs on it, so I knew kind of what was going on. But I was never like watch all of Raw, watch all of SmackDown. I'd be like, when's the women's match on? Sit and wait after the women's match, go and leave to watch something else. But I get what you mean. Like, if you're an older wrestling fan, I feel like a lot of times it's sometimes a bit awkward. People are like, oh, I've loved this person since I was 5 years old. And I'm like, cool, I only really know about them because of everyone else speaking about how legendary they are. Like, if you go back in time, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, I had like no idea about him until probably WWE 2K16, when you had to play the showcase mode to unlock all the like old arenas, which obviously I knew from the women's matches, but I was like, oh, cool, I guess this guy was a big thing. So I'd say that's where I'm kind of like with wrestling now. Obviously, being in wrestling, I'm like, I need to know about all these people. I need to sort of get knowledgeable, because it comes to a point when, especially in training, they'll be like, think how this like Stone Cold Austin does a stunner, and I'm like, who is Stone Cold Austin? Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who is The Rock? How does The Rock do a toe kick? I don't know. So now I'm a bit more knowledgeable. And then I'll have moments of like wrestling encyclopedia knowledge, and they'll be like, I'll be talking about Chris Candido doing something in ECW, and everyone in class will just look at me and be like, how do you know this? And I'll be like, well, he was with Sunny. So as long as there's a women's wrestling connection, I'm going to know about them. Yeah.
Fair play. It's like, like people say, it's like Stone Cold. Okay, what does he do? He hates his boss and he drinks. I mean, that just sounds like my mate Larry down at the pub. So, I mean, hey, if anyone could do it, anyone could do it. But, you speak of your passion and love for women's wrestling in particular. I must imagine as a new fan going in and just seeing how it's evolved from Divas era to give Divas a chance to the chance we have now with women's wrestling. Was it quite shocking as a first-time fan to see where women's wrestling was to where it is now?
It was a little bit, but I also grew up on like the 2000s kind of reality TV shows, so The Simple Life in The Girls Next Door. So I was kind of very much in that crowd of like, oh, I love a good bit of kind of like salacious TV, or very much. So for me, I kind of almost loved that aspect because it was something the men just very much couldn't do. And like growing up, I'm so happy where women's wrestling is now, how it's taken more seriously. But I do sometimes miss that, like those diva matches, that diva kind of style of wrestling. Like I love and I miss the Diva Search so much. I remember that was one thing I'd go back and watch all the time, because although it would be sometimes just outrageous, it was just so like something about it just like drew me in. And obviously, I think when you're young, you look up to it and you're like, oh my God, I want to enter it one day. And then I found out that the Diva Search was cancelled. And I was like, oh no, how am I supposed to get into WWE now? Before I knew like about wrestling schools and everything. So I think for me, although it's incredible what goes on and I'm so happy where it is, I do still have that place in my heart where I'm like, oh, I just want one more like Divas Championship match. I need one more, like, just need it in my life.
Hey, it's a fun era, and there's a lot of people that look back and love that era. There may be a particular mindset now that think it was a bad era and all that, but I think there was some good with it, because obviously it's connected with you, and if wrestling connects with people, then it's done its job, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can't, like, without any bad moments, then there wouldn't have been an evolution to begin with. So there wouldn't be, to be honest with you, I personally think there wouldn't be any women's wrestling today if that hadn't have happened, because before then, like before you had like the brown panties matches, you didn't hardly see any women, or if they were just valets, you wouldn't even realize they'd wrestle. And then it got into it a bit more. And then so you need to have that like evolution of something maybe not so good to where we're at today, where it is like way better, and women are now having their like the first one-on-one at WrestleMania feud without a title since like WrestleMania 22. So you need to have something, I guess, not so good that people might be like, oh, that's bad, to evolve from.
Mm-hmm.
Like Pokemon, you got to start somewhere to evolve somewhere else.
Yeah, fair point. You got to start with a Squirtle to get a Blastoise at the end of the day, because fuck Misty's Miltank. Fuck those days. That was the worst ever time with gold. Ugh. But yeah, putting that to the childhood trauma past there. Obviously, I think a lot of people with that Divas era specifically remember like Total Bellas, Total Divas, the reality shows. I mean, WWE is on Netflix now. Do you think we could see a return of that kind of style of TV show for the company?
I 100% think they should definitely bring it back, or look for something like that, because you see so many women's wrestlers now as well talk about it, like how Total Divas inspired them. I used to watch Total Divas with my mum. The only wrestling content she would ever consume was Total Divas. So that was like how we would kind of bond. She'd be like, oh, they do this. That's really cool. And I'd be like, yeah. But I think they should. And I also think it brought, the Total Divas was such like a way to put women's wrestlers in the media and in the light. Like The Rock had Hollywood, and then for the women, having their own reality TV show really just pushed them into the limelight. And to me, I think it just really encouraged a whole load of like young women and girls to watch it and go, oh my God, these are actually really strong, empowering women. They're fighting backstage for things. And I think they should definitely do it. There's so many people on the roster at the moment I'd love to see behind the scenes. We have social media these days anyway, so why not like have a reality TV show? Obviously, they brought back Tough Enough in a way with Legends and Future Greats. So maybe they'll bring back Total Divas in a different form. I know AEW tried to like do it with their reality TV show, but I think WWE need to bring it back and just rename it Total Divas as well. Like, it was Total Divas. It just needs to be that. I don't want any other name. I just want Total Divas.
Hey, brand recognition. If it resonates with the audience, you bring it back, and you're going to have a lot of money, a lot of merch. But I do want to know, though, is there any particular women on the roster you really want to see in that kind of reality show environment?
I definitely think Chelsea Green, Maxine Dupree, and probably Tiffany Stratton. Obviously, they're like the very diva-esque women currently, and I just think it'd be perfect. Obviously, as Maxine's like, she's really popular, but she's kind of new in wrestling. So I think it'd be great for, as well, her like character building and star power, because a lot of the women on Total Divas, you had like Eva Marie and JoJo who were new. So you'd probably want a couple like new people, like maybe the people that have won Legends of Future Greats, or even some like WWID people. I think that would be really interesting to see how they go into the business, how they get into WWE would be really interesting. And then, yeah, I think that's how I would have it. And then maybe put in Rhea Ripley or Liv Morgan. And obviously we need Naomi and Natalia back. Like, now they're back, we've got to have our OGs in there, because it's just so legendary. So
Bring back the classics. That's what you want to see, the new and the old. And obviously with Total Divas and obviously, Total Bellas, which was obviously came down later, it really speaks to that era of television, because obviously at the same time there was things like the Jerry Springer Show, Big Brother, obviously here in the UK it was like the Jeremy Kyle Show at that point of view, and just that real aspect of reality. Heck, even like The Only Way Is Essex or Geordie Shores, because those were shows back in the day that not for me. But how do you feel that Total Divas is like a time capsule of basically media at that point in relation to reality TV shows?
I feel like it was very much like the early season, definitely. It was very almost like early Kardashian season, that kind of, these are their lives, like they do this, they're famous for this reason, and now let's go backstage and see what it is. And it was just, I think it captured like the women's evolution really well as well. So you had like the beginnings of NXT almost, with like Eva Marie and JoJo, how they got into it. And then you would see how women's wrestling would only get like 2 minutes on the show. Like the first episode, you have the Bella Twins and the Funkadactyls match cut from WrestleMania. You see how, even though they were the only women on the show, they were more than happy to just axe them. And they were like, well, and it's like the only WrestleMania, I think, that was for years that had no women on. So that's my least favorite WrestleMania as well. No point in watching that one. And I think it shows the evolution of women in that time, which is like 2012, 2016, and also how women's sports was taken seriously. Because I think later seasons, they start to get more into the wrestling aspect of it. But in the early seasons, it's much more about their personal lives and what's going on. And then as the further the divas started to go and get like more things, then the show started to changing as to reflect that more. And I think that's really interesting. I would, again, love to see how they would do that in like the modern age, when women's wrestling is kind of at its, maybe not at its peak, but it's almost there, to the point of, Rhea Ripley's such a huge star. Like, she's bigger than a star than most of the men on the roster. It would be really interesting to see what would be seen backstage, because I know you also got to have some fake little dramas in there for reality TV shows, of course. Got to have that Real Housewives aspect of someone kicking off at someone over the dinner table or something. But yeah, I think, yeah.
Hey, fair play. Someone's going to get mad that the chicken isn't cooked right or something like that. You got a little sprinkle little details in there. Obviously, with that Divas era, we're seeing a lot of people getting recognized for it now. Obviously, as we were recording this, the Hall of Fame is later in the week, where Michelle McCool is going to be inducted by her husband, The Undertaker. Just your thoughts on seeing Michelle get this accolade of being in the Hall of Fame?
I'm so happy. I was so excited. She was one of my picks to be chosen for like years. And I was so excited. I'm a bit sad that The Undertaker's inducting her and not Layla, because every women's wrestler that's been inducted for like the last several years, it's always been their tag team partner. So like you had Stacey Keebler and Tori Wilson inducting each other. You had Beth Phoenix inducted by Natalia. And then, so that's a bit sad, but obviously it's The Undertaker. Like, he is The Undertaker. I mean, if you're getting inducted by The Undertaker, it's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's one of those women who I'd love to see do like another run, to be honest, because I think she was so, I don't want to say ahead of her time, because I think she fit into the Divas era so amazingly. And she was such a good worker and wrestler for that era. But I would love to see her go again, because I think she could definitely win like another championship or just be involved in some really great matches and like actually show that women from that era can do these 20-minute matches, can have these main events, a lot like Trish Stratus has done, and possibly have like some of the best matches of their career, because now it's more focused on the like athleticism and they're given more time to showcase that. So I think that would be, it's just crazy, to be honest. I'm loving that it's like the Divas era wrestlers getting inducted at the moment. I'm hoping for Victoria next year or Jazz. And then I'd like to see it go back to, I think we've just got to get so many divas in there that I want to put in there. Maybe even have 2 women's wrestlers slots would be even more interesting to have.
I think there's a lot of women on that roster, especially for that time period, that do deserve it. You know, AJ Lee isn't in it. I think that's someone who fully deserves it. Who knows? Maybe Punk can induct her. That'd be a very charming husband and wife induction. It's great to see. And obviously, women's wrestling has made so many strides. Obviously, there's the, Evolution pay-per-view that WWE done in the past. There's the NWA Empower that they did in the past. There's rumors of Evolution 2. Just your thoughts, Lana. What would it mean for you as such a big fan of women's wrestling to see a potential Evolution 2 pay-per-view?
It would mean a lot, because I kind of assumed, I think that everyone else, it'd be a yearly pay-per-view for the women. And then I guess the women are actually allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, that they were like, we don't need the Evolution pay-per-view anymore. Because that's what it kind of seemed like. So actually when it happened, it was like, we're going to have a pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia, but we're not going to allow to have any women on it. So here's Evolution. And then I guess kind of forgot about it. But I would love to see it as a pay-per-view, but also as a way to bring in ex-wrestlers, like ex-women's wrestlers, to have that final match. Because it's always amazing to see people actually, get that time to shine. Obviously, it provided so many great moments and matches. And we got like a battle royal with all the divas in that it was probably one of my favorite matches, because I got to see like Kelly and Michelle McCool. Ivory was in there as well, which she's also really underrated. And yeah, I think it'd just be such a good thing for women's wrestling. And now I think is almost the perfect time, because you've got people like Rhea Ripley that people will tune into it. Like women's wrestling fans will probably tune in because everyone loves Rhea Ripley, and you get in some big names. Obviously, post WrestleMania as well, it will just be a pretty big pay-per-view. And then I guess you can kind of forgive WWE for not having as many women's matches on other pay-per-views or on like the weekly shows. But I think that'd be good. I need to see like a Nikki Bella, and I need the Bella twins back for Evolution 2 though.
I mean, I guess the dream thing would be seeing the Bellas become tag team champions, right?
Oh yeah, I'd cry. It's like wrestling is one of the only things that makes you cry. And it's like Michelle McCool with Slater Extremes Rules makes you cry all the time. The first ever Women's Royal Rumble makes you cry. And yeah, if I saw the Bella twins win, I'd probably cry at that as well.
We'll get plenty of tissues on standby. We will prepare. No mascara. Make sure you're all good on that accord. Obviously, outside of the WWE, there's a lot of great elements of women's wrestling. TNA's doing some great things with their tag titles and the knockouts. AEW, they've got Toni Storm, who's just art. But obviously, I had Layla Hirsch on, and she mentioned her time in Ring of Honor was frustrating. with the women's booking there. When you hear that, Lana, does that make you saddened to hear that? And from obviously a women's wrestler point of view, not really wanting to go to somewhere where you feel like there's going to be a lot of frustrations in women's booking?
It is quite sad, and I think it's sometimes you can kind of see the frustration. Because as a women's wrestling fan, sometimes I'm like, why is this person not booked? Like, you have all this talent. Why is there not any segments for the women? My biggest thing in wrestling is storylines. And I think you can put women in great matches, sure, every week. But if there's nothing to draw you in to the match to begin with, it's kind of not pointless, because a good match is always a good match, but where's it going to go? And I think with TV wrestling, especially, that's what you need. In the indie scene, it could be a bit different, but with TV scene, why am I going to tune in every week to watch you if there's nothing there? And I think for the women, it's so difficult, because I think they're trying sometimes so hard to not be like the past, but actually back then you would have these storylines, or you'd know, okay, Michelle McCool doesn't like Maurice, they're going to fight next week. They've now thrown makeup on each other. This is heating up, like this is going. Whereas now it's kind of like a bit quiet, a bit, they're wrestling each other for this, but okay. And that's why I think like one of the best storylines of last year was Toni Storm versus Mariah May, because it just built up like over a year, and it was just incredible to watch and see what happened. Even though we kind of knew what was going to happen, we were all just waiting, sitting there like, is she going to turn now? Is it going to be now? I think, yeah, it can be frustrating to watch and to listen to these people that have left and been like, I feel like sometimes not even wasted years, but if you're just sat not doing anything and you're like, I just want to wrestle and do something in this company, and I think that's quite dissatisfying to hear. But I just think it's just a struggle as well for a lot of talent, to be honest. If you're not given anything to work with, then how are you supposed to prove almost that you're worth something to be put on the main event? You need to be given that opportunity. And yeah, I think that is sometimes the downfall of a lot of women's rosters, is you can have all the talent in the world, but if they're not given anything to do, like especially something meaningful, then how are we supposed to take it seriously almost? Because you'll give like the men 20 storylines and then the women get one storyline and it's just about the championship. It's like, okay, we get it. You want to win the championship. Everyone wants to win the championship. But why is this important to you? Why do you want to win the championship besides its championship? What underlying like personality traits do you have other than you're a women's wrestler who obviously to be the best, you need to win like the belt in this company and go on to win the next belt that's above that. And I think for me, that's what women's wrestling's missing at the moment, is a lot of good storylines that are captivating and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this. Because I'm a firm believer of you don't need to wrestle every week on TV to get over that you're angry and having a feud. Like, have a good promo backstage, have a backstage segment. Like, I miss in the Divas era, we had plenty of them. Although it was a bit annoying because we didn't see the women wrestle. We had our backstage segments, you know, we had the pink lighting, we had Feeling Me On in the background when they'd walk over. And I think that's just, yeah, what's missing is just a good storyline for the women that's focused on something else other than beating the person in a match.
It's a shame, and it's kind of like this, I won't say stereotypical booking of, you know, like how you see it with sometimes with some shows, they have always just the women's match, or they just have it be like, oh, we've got our women's titles, we'll have them and no other things. Like, I'm very excited to see Jade Cargill and Naomi because I like what they've built up with their stories. Do you feel like in relation to wrestling booking, there is this sort of unbreakable stereotype with women's wrestling?
I don't know if it's so much a stereotype. I think it's more they find it difficult to not book women like into that stereotype. It makes sense. They're trying to they're kind of trying to not put that storyline, that emphasis on the fact that they're women's wrestlers. I think that's what's kind of also being missed sometimes, is we need to treat everyone like a wrestler in the star, and kind of they miss that focus of, well, women's wrestlers would react completely differently to this, like to how you're expecting them to react. And like you said, like the Jade and Naomi feud is insane. Like that's what I was so excited for. So I was like, finally a feud that's not over a belt or anything. It was just over like a women's friendship, and they had probably one of the best segments in years. Bianca Belair and Naomi, like the emotions, everything. It's what has been missing for so long.
No, yeah, and I can't wait to see what those two women do in the ring at WrestleMania. I do want to obviously talk about the UK, because we are in it, as you can tell, because there's no sunshine.
Yeah.
That's the UK for us. But we're seeing such a big month coming up, which will be in August, where not only will WWE, but AEW will be in the country at the same time. WWE have their tour leading up to Clash in Paris, while AEW have announced they're going to be at the Hydro for Dynamite and Collision, and Forbidden Door at the O2 in London, all in the span of August. So people start to save up your money, because it's going to be a busy month. But as you know, someone from the UK, we love our wrestling. We've got so many great talented wrestlers. As a fan, to hear that these two major companies are going to be in our country at the same time, how honored does it make you feel to be a British wrestling fan, to know that we have that spotlight come August?
It's really incredible, to be honest. I remember last year I went to go see to the AEW tapings of Dynamite and Collision, and that was incredible because you can just hear the UK crowd. It's like, and European crowds we've seen on pay-per-views, they're nothing like anyone else. They're so loud. We've got all our own chants. Thank you, football. We've got everything, and it's just such an opportunity to showcase like how passionate we are, not only to the rest of the world, but I think to these companies, to be like, come hold your big events here because we want to see it. We're, you know, and I think for years we would just have like house shows, no one would really pay attention to us. And so it's insane for both companies to be here at the same time. I'm hoping to go see them live, both of them if I can. But yeah, a busy month, trying to get all the sleeps in before, because it's tiring to get everywhere in one go. But hopefully, but it's just insane. And I'm fingers crossed. I know everyone in the indie and the British wrestling scene wants WrestleMania here one day. We've had All In, and that's always incredible. But to have WrestleMania here, I think would just be like the best.
Yeah, obviously when AEW do come over, the national UK hero Big Bill will be there, and because we love Big Bill, I mean that Collision match, holy shit, man was like a national hero at that point. Good lord! But you speak about how WrestleMania, it's important. A lot of people said it could happen. A lot of people said they haven't. It's too ingrained in American culture. We don't have the facilities for it. We have Wembley Stadium. Come on, folks. But obviously that Mania weekend is that environment where so many indie wrestlers get to put on shows. There's shows from every kind of company. How do you feel a Mania weekend would be for the UK wrestling scene? Do you think it would be one of the biggest beneficial events that could happen?
Oh yeah, I think it'd be huge. I mean, every single indie company would be putting on a show that weekend. They'd be trying to get somewhere in London. So many wrestlers would be booked multiple shows a day. And also, it would also bring in a load of talent from elsewhere in the world. Like you see it now, like loads of the UK wrestlers go over to America. I did that a couple of years ago, not WrestleMania season, but I went over to America, and then they'll come over here, especially if it's Mania season. Everyone will be here. Wrestling fans will be soaking up every single thing they can, which is always brilliant. And I'm so thankful for them. And yeah, I just think it'd be such a boom for the wrestling business, and would also showcase, I think, a new light on British indie wrestling scene, which I think is gone a bit downwards. Obviously, we had NXT UK, and then that closed down. But I think it's starting to get back up. But yeah, I think that would just send it straight up there. Like, look, everyone, what the British UK indie wrestling scene's like. And then, yeah, it would also encourage, I think, more tryouts for WWE and AEW to have a look for people. And that's always a good sign.
Oh, Absolutely. More people getting this big stage from our country. It's phenomenal to see. Obviously, one of the places on fire right now in the UK is obviously the Welsh scene. There's so much going on there. I've interviewed many talent from there, and they always give it the glowing praise. I give it the glowing praise. And I know you've done some stuff down there, particularly with New Wave.
Yes,
I just want to know, what was the story with that? How did New Wave come about for you?
so I was training for a bit at a previous school, and I broke my collarbone the first time. And I was like healing, getting back to it, and I was just not sure on whether I wanted to stay in wrestling or whether I wanted to go and just be like, do you know what? I've been injured. I can't go on again. It's a bit sad. But my really good friend, Aluna, who I know you've interviewed as well before, she told me about New Wave Wrestling. So I went there for a session and it just reinvigorated my love for wrestling. The coaching was just insane. Like, I don't really think there's anywhere else that coaches like them. Obviously now they spread out. We've got New Wave Cardiff and New Wave West Midlands. But at the time it was just New Wave, like Newport or New Wave Wales, basically. I trained there. I just haven't wanted to go anywhere else. I've trained at a couple of other schools like Brook King Pro. They're really good. And I want to go to other schools in the UK at the moment, but the injury bug bit me a couple times recently. But yeah, it's just the amount of talent is insane. You see like everyone now on Rev Pro, and they're coming on to Progress now as well. And I'm like, oh, I saw you when you were not first starting, because I joined late, but I saw you when you were still kind of getting there. And that's amazing to see. I'm a big supporter in like praising everyone with whatever they do in wrestling, because I think in this business it's really hard to not be like, yay, you've got that, I'm so happy for you, but I really want that too. Because I think if you just clap for others, then everyone else will clap for you when you get things. And at New Wave, that's very much what it's like as well. We're more of a, I guess the cliche thing, like we're more of a family, but we are more of a like a good close-knit friends. Like we always see what everyone's doing. We're always like, come on, like you've got this, let's go. I know when I broke my collarbone the second time, everyone messaged me, were like, I'm really sorry about this. And I was like, it's okay, these things happen. But yeah, like we've got probably some of the best wrestlers, I think, in the UK at the moment that are from New Wave. And yeah, so we've got like Nico Angelo, James Ellis, obviously our coaches, we've got Danny Jones, we've got Mike Hitchman. We've got just so many people that are from New Wave, and a lot of people that I think that are just starting on their journey that will be huge in maybe a year or a couple of years. Yeah.
No, I've always described it as a good community. From what I see of just how people support one another, where they're liking posts, sharing it. It's wholesome to see, and it brings a warmth to me, old Scottish cold heart, and I'm happy to see it because it's truly wholesome. But I do have to ask, Lana, you know, I said it in the beginning, the legs of pro wrestling, right? How did this, right? Give me the background. What made you think legs? We're going with legs.
So I am like 5'11", 6 foot. So I'm really tall. And I was like, okay, what is different about me? And I was like, oh, I'm really tall. Everyone else is kind of like 5'2", maybe 5'6" at the tallest. And you're kind of like, oh God, I'm the tall one again. And then I love the old Divas like era. And I was like, what's kind of a name that people are going to be like, oh, that's different in today's age. It's not like the Killer. It's not something that seems really crazy or badass. I was like, what could I be? And I was like, the legs of pro wrestling. A bit of a confidence boost to myself, because I quite like my legs. They're very long. And yeah, I was just like, it kind of also tells you a bit about my offense. Like, obviously I haven't had any matches at the moment because I've been injured. But a lot of things I'm practicing on are like kicks and leg chokes and doing all the things with the legs. So why not just put it in the tagline, put it on my bum, on my trunks that I wear, and then just be like, yeah, it's Legs of Pro Wrestling. And then if people don't know my name, they can just call me Legs of Pro Wrestling. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Legs. I mean, legs. Cool. Legs. I mean, as I said before, you know, people can be a bit weird. I've seen wrestling fans. They're sometimes right. But hey, go for it. It's a great moniker to have. I mean, I feel like when you do a good big boot, that will be like, yep, she's got it. That will look amazing. You obviously mentioned your collarbone, and I know you mentioned 2 injuries off it. And I think you recently posted on your Instagram that you got a good bill of health, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so it was actually amazing timing that I'm having this podcast. So I'm officially discharged from the hospital and my collarbone's fully healed. Thank you. So it means I can get back into training properly. I had like the all clear like 12 weeks ago, like so 2 months ago, and they're like, go back to training, just like take it easy. And so I went back slowly to like the occasional session, just because also it's a huge mental aspect where it is broken twice. I'm constantly worried, like, oh, it's going to break again. And I think that's the thing to overcome. And then now that I've been told, yeah, you don't have to come back to the hospital ever again for an x-ray on it, I'm like, right, full train ahead. Let's go back into training. So hopefully, and I'm working on having my first match in June, because then it would be a year since I debuted in like the New Wave Women's Championship Rumble. And I think that would just be like a good timeline, gives me enough time to get back to where I was and maybe not better. But that's hopefully the plan. Hopefully no more injuries hit me along the way. I don't think I can take any more. And I'm hoping that my luck is just going to keep on going.
You're going to finish the storyline. You're going to finish the story. We're going to see that as well. But only during your time of injury, I believe you've also been managing a tag team, 2 lads as well, I believe.
Yes. So I've also, luckily, thank God, in my time injured, have been managing the Blockbusters. So we're the total package. That was their choice of name. I was like, oh, is that a bit much, guys? So I've been managing them. Started off as just like wanted to do something in wrestling. All my favorites have tended to be valets first. So I was like, I kind of would love to do that. And then they were like, yeah, we've got Southwest Wrestling. They want a valet for us. They want something kind of like Eminem like along that lines. I was like, okay, cool. I think I've got this. And it was one of those moments again with wrestling when I joined. I was like, if it doesn't work, it's not going to work, but I can say I did it. And there. And also, if not, I've got footage and I've got good photos now. So, got to keep going on the content, got to keep going. So I did that and instantly fell in love. It just seemed to connect. The crowd hated me, and that's what I wanted. So crowd hated me. And then I got like a big backstage. I had a lot of friends who were like, this is insane. They were like, where did all this come from? And I was like, oh, just keep it to myself. But yes, it's done that. And then it's gone on to being, we got to do a match in Pro Wrestling Chaos, which was insane. Because to me, that's probably the 3rd biggest show in the UK. Probably one of the bigger known, like they get a lot of international talent, and it was crazy to me. It was the 3rd match we ever did together as well. So it was almost like, what is going on? And yeah, that was it's just like one of my favorite things that, to be honest, I'm quite happy to not be in the wrestling ring at the moment, because I've got this, being a valet is great.
Yeah, it's a great role, and I think it's a necessary role because you can get so much out of it. If I think of managers and valet, I think of, obviously closer to home, big manager Blanche, who does it for James Ellis. Obviously, there's Amira, who does it for Michael Oku. Denise up in ICW, she does stuff as well. Internationally, there's obviously Paul Heyman. There's obviously Prince Nana. There's Mark Sterling with Premier Athletes, but it kind of is a lost art. Why do you think managing or even valets in recent history has become such a lost art?
I think it's just not a thing that is easy to do per se. It's quite hard to not outshine people, but sometimes you'll get people who are really charismatic and they go for a wrestler that isn't so charismatic and you can kind of outshine them. Or you have that I'm a wrestler, but I'm here to be a valet or manager. I know that's kind of me, but I kind of like to limit what I do and just stick to the classic valet things of working on the crowd, like going for the chokes, powder in the face of people to win matches or lose them in some of our cases. It's just a little switch, I think, to being like, don't get hit, don't get involved too much, take away. And I think it's just, as well, it can be not expensive for shows, but a lot of companies, they have a budget for each show. And companies don't always want to be like, oh, here's an extra £15 or here's an extra 20 quid for your valet who might not bring anything in for us either. And yeah, I think it's quite hard as well to gel with wrestlers. Like some people, you give it a go. It's what I was nervous about. We're good friends behind the scenes, but out there, when you turn on the characters, is it going to work, or is it going to be you just look like you're standing there kind of thing? I think that's just, it's very difficult to do, I guess. It's sort of,
I think wrestling fans don't understand how every aspect of wrestling is tough to do, whether you're a promoter putting on shows or ring crew or setups, technical, obviously wrestlers and valets and managers to an extent. You're doing things in real time, and generally there isn't another take. It's one take and that's it. You have to go off of what you're doing in the time, what the reaction of the crowd is, and it is a tough aspect. You know what? I like a good fantasy booking, if I say so myself. I want to know, Lana, is there two other people, a tag team that you love to see your little boys go against?
I would love to see, they've already had this match. I know it's going to be good. It's Diamond Eyes, so Nico Angelo and Connor Mills versus the Blockbusters. But I want to be involved this time. Bit selfish on me, but I know the boys would love to do it again. But I would kind of like to get involved and have that aspect to the match where it's different. Because again, as well, having a valet, the match is going to be different. Like, it's not just a normal tag match. You've got an extra person that's got to get involved somehow, do something. And I'd love to do that. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if me and the boys get on like Progress, that would be that's like the big goal for me next, for me and the boys, is to get on to Progress or Rev Pro, one of those two shows. That for me would be big. If it was WWE, my tag team knowledge isn't very good. But I'd have to probably go for... Oh, I'm lost on tag teams now. Maybe what they called the Street Profits, I think. Yeah.
Good call.
I'm like big high flyers, because like my boys they can fly too. They're happy to go off the top rope, but I think it would just be a really cool match between the two. Both really loads of charisma. I think that'd be good.
Get Meltzer on the phone. We've got a 5-star classic incoming. That's what we need to do. I mean, if it was in the Tokyo Dome, maybe 6, but we can't push his scales any more than he's already pushed it in the past. Obviously, though, Lana, for yourself, you're good to go. You get to back in training and hopefully make your first debut, obviously, in June. If is there an opponent planned, or if you got someone in particular you like to go against, maybe a Luna, because that'd be kind of interesting.
I'd love to wrestle with Luna. She's actually the first person I ever locked up with in training. So that's the match that I need to happen at any point in my time, whether it's my first match, whether it's along the road, whether it's for a championship, would be the dream. There's just so many women right now that I'd want to wrestle. I know Zoe Lucas has just made a big return, and I'd love to wrestle Zoe, because I think we have the way I'm wrestling at the moment, or I did wrestle, was kind of similar in aspects. The kicks, the like diva-esque moves. So I'd love to do something with Zoe, because I think there'd be a lot of cool like sections that we could do that only we could do.
Fair play indeed. That would be quite an interesting one there. But hey, digressing. Obviously, within the UK, I think a big pillar for women's wrestling is obviously Pro Wrestling Eve. I know a lot of women wrestlers, their goal is Eve, just because of what it stands for, the community, the history. Why is it that you think, particularly, Lana, that Eve is such a goal for a lot of British women's wrestlers?
I would say probably because it's just been such a it sounds weird, but like a godsend to women's wrestling in the UK. When a lot of shows wouldn't book women, or you'd get maybe one women's match and no real time. It was just like, put women on there because that's what's interesting. Pro Wrestling Eve was showing that you could sell out venues, you can sell out arenas, you can get these huge names over that people want to see. And they've done everything they can to just continue the focus on women in like the UK scene, which was a bit lacking, to be honest, before they were around. And I think that's why, for a lot of women, I'd love to wrestle there. For sure, definitely. That's why I'd say a lot of women want to wrestle there. And it's in London, it's close, it's the center of everything in England, and some would say the UK. And I think that's just, it's just been so for women that like you don't need any other women's wrestling companies in the UK, because we've got Pro Wrestling Eve. They've kind of got the domino. So
absolutely. And I can't wait to see what more Eve are able to accomplish. And I'm sure when the legs of pro wrestling walk in, everyone's going to be like, yeah, we're going to be giving her full attention, because your Lady Luck herself. Well, Lana, it's been a great pleasure to have you here on the Soul Sessions for a great old chat. Truly an honor, and thank you very much. I do want to wrap up. Obviously, you're the legs of pro wrestling. Is there another legs of pro wrestling you want to have? Are we going to get a leg off? Who's the other legs you want to have a match against? What is this legs versus legs match?
Oh my God, I'm trying to work out which women's wrestler is as tall as me. I guess LA Taylor, she's quite tall. We can have a leg off. She's probably going to have a lot more muscly legs than I am, because she has an incredible figure. I'm always like, so envious. I only wish I could get that muscly. I'm trying to think who else. I'd love, I tell you what, it may not be the legs off, but I need a Lana off with me and Lana Austin. That's one of my dream matches. I think that for me, that would be my pinnacle of matches, like Lana versus Lana. Who gets to keep the name?
Oh Lord, we better have somebody with a dictionary on standby. It's like, what other kind of abbreviations can we use for Lana in case somebody loses? This is going to be bad. But hey, that's the joys of pro wrestling. Well, Lana, thank you again, of course, for coming on here. And folks, if you love what you've heard of Lady Luck herself, I'm going to put a link to her Instagram down below. You can click it, follow her, and when this leg off does happen, you can say you were here first when it was birthed. But hey, as a good old Scotsman, as I say, finish up your drink, put your chairs away, and thank you as always, folks, for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions.
Now about the humans who gonna live like animals do. No more laws and no more rules.